Alright, welcome everybody. So this is a late upload kinda, and yeah. So where we last left off, All Might left, I believe, after the hero versus villains, I believe. I have no idea. Anyways, or let's see. So it's the next thing. Izuku and Momo. Well, this episode's probably going to be Sword. And I'm going to make my Black Clover what if soon because I picked an idea. What if what if Asta had life or death magic? I'm going to give it a name soon. So yeah. It's the next day. Izuku and Momo are on their way to school until some news reporter crowd them asking how to work with All Might. Izuku just says, "Get lost," as he walks into the building with Momo. So a few minutes later, a few minutes of the news reporter annoying the students, Aizawa decided this needs to stop as he comes out and asks them to leave. They ask if he can get them All Might and says, and Aizawa says, "All Might is not on campus today. Plus, you've been annoying my students long enough." Aizawa said this as he walks away. So while Aizawa is walking away, he asks himself, how does All Might get anything done with all of this idiocy? One of the female reporters says, "Fine, I'll get him myself." As he's about to walk into UA, another reporter says, "Wait," as the UA safety measures turn on. She flinched at this as one of the other reporters once again told her these are UA security methods. So, at homeroom class, Aizawa walks in and says, "Decent work on yesterday's combat training. I watched the video feed and went over your results." He then looks at Bakugo and says, "Hey Bakugo, you're talented, so don't soak about your loss to Midoriya." Then he looks at Midoriya and says, "I don't even know what to say about you." Izuku thinks to himself, is that a good thing? Then Aizawa says, "Let's get down to business. This decision will decide your future." The air in the class is thick with tension. You could practically cut through it. Aizawa then says, "You have to pick a class rep." There's a huge sigh of relief as everyone says, "Hey, normal school stuff." Everyone was putting their hands up saying they should be class rep till Ida proposes an idea. They have a voting match, and everyone agrees on this. And Aizawa said to do it by the end of class as he gets into his sleeping bag. So the election results come in, and Izuku is just looking to the side, hoping he didn't get picked. So Izuku looks around the chart, looking for his name because he's curious, until he sees himself first, top of the chart with 3 votes. He says out loud, "How did I get 3 votes? The game's a paid actor." And Baku yells at him, asking who voted for him. Zero asks if he honestly thought anyone was going to vote for him. So after this, Izuku walks up, wondering why did this always happen to me, and Momo says it's okay. Momo says it's okay. So it's lunchtime, and while Izuku is talking with Momo, he picks up his chopsticks and says while eating rice, "Wow, this rice is really good." Then Izuku says, "Hey Mo-chan, what do you think about the whole class rep thing? I don't feel I'm qualified." Momo would say, "Sure you are. I know you can do it. After all, I didn't vote for you for no reason." Izuku asks, "You voted for me?" She nods, and Izuku says, "Didn't you want to be class rep?" She says yes, but he's more suited, and she's better off but an alarm cuts her off as she was about to say vice rep. The intercom says, "Level 3 security breach. Evacuate the building immediately." Others who were at their table started to run, and Izuku says, "Hey, Mo-chan, do you really think we should evacuate? If we're striving to be heroes, should we really evacuate?" She shrugs, and they decided to go because they're first years. And before that, Izuku pulls the third year aside to ask about this, but no luck, since it hasn't happened in the 3 years at UA. Izuku would think, maybe we shouldn't run, but I don't want to stand out. As he would start walking, but he would get shoved into a glass window. He would look out only to see the press. He thinks to himself, "That's all? The press?" As he would see Ida in his sight, he would say, "Hey Ida, it's just the press." Ida would ask what Izuku said, and Izuku would repeat, It's just the press. Then Ida would then he would tell Ida to say that to all of the students. And in Izuku's head, he thinks to himself, this is an opportunity to not be class rep. I can't miss it. As Ida would ask how to get up there, Uraraka would make him float using her quirk, and he would dash using his engines. He slams onto the wall as everyone looks at him, and he explains that it's just the press. So while this is going on, we get a view of two masked figures grabbing documents from Nezu's office. One seemed to have mist radiating from his head and hands, while the other seemed to have something on his face. Was it a hand, a mask? Who knows? So it's class, and Momo would say, class rep, let's begin. Izuku clears his throat and says, we need to figure out who the class officers will be. But then he says, I thought about this a lot, and though I think Ida should be class rep. Everyone looks shocked, and then he explained he explained how Ida got everyone's attention during the emergency exit thing. A few students would agree with Izuku. And Aizawa says this is a waste of time and to just pick who does it. I don't care. So, we get a view of Nezu wondering how the villains made it through Yue's defenses. Then he says members of the press can't do this. He asks if it's a show of strength from the villains, which Midnight and the Recovery Lady shrug. So back at home, Izuku says, I should have thought about nominating you for class rep. Momo says it's fine and that Ida would make a better leader, and Izuku says, I don't know. Momo says, hey, why don't we go out for lunch to clear your mind? Well, for dinner. There's a super nice gourmet restaurant that sells amazing curry. Come on. It'll be fun. As Momo is kind of gently pushing Izuku toward the exit of the house, Izuku says, fine, maybe it'll help clear my mind. So at the restaurant, Izuku and Momo have a seat at this table, and the waitress comes. Hey there, may I take your order? The waitress asks. Izuku says, what do you want, Mo-chan? And she says I'll just take a small-sized curry with some lobster on the side. The waitress would nod and ask about Izuku. He says I'll have the same as her. The waitress would nod as said if they would like any drinks. And Momo says I'll just take some water. Izuku asks for some apple juice, and yes. So while waiting on their order, Momo says to Izuku, you look so down, please cheer up. It's okay that you picked Ida. Izuku still doesn't know and says maybe. So 7 minutes go by as they receive their orders. Thank you, ma'am, Izuku says. So they eat, and once they're done eating, the waitress asks how will they be paying. Izuku says debit card. As he's grabbing his debit card from his pocket, Momo would go and beats into it and pays. Izuku says, but Momo cuts him off and says, it's okay. You still don't seem fine. Let's go to the park for a romantic stroll. It will be sure to cheer you on. Izuku says, sir, not wanting to be mean to Momo as they go to the park. 30 minutes go by of them walking through a forest-type place until they sit by at events. Momo rests her head on Izuku's shoulder and says, isn't this romantic? Izuku nods, looking at the stars, thinking, these stars are so beautiful. Then he says, hey Mo-chan, don't these stars look amazing? As he looks aside, Momo is fast asleep. Then he says, aw, and puts her head on his lap so it can be more comfortable, and says to himself, I'm so lucky to have someone as amazing as her. So I'm going to pause the video to make more scripts, because whenever I make scripts, it turns out it's not as long as I think it'll be. So, let's get into yeah. Okay, so, I finished writing a tiny bit of script, and let's get into it. So, the next day before school, Izuku would wake up very early in his bed. They didn't sleep outside. He eventually carried Momo to the limo as they got driven back home. So, he woke up on his bed to see Momo cuddling with him. He'd instantly get a nosebleed, like those anime nosebleeds when they like someone. Anyways, he thinks to himself, what is he doing on my bed? As he started getting all red, wondering what he should do. As he tries getting up, Momo would pull him back onto the bed and say, let's snuggle. School hasn't started yet. And he thinks to himself, I don't have the mental capacity to handle what might happen. So after snuggling for a bit, Izuku would pick up his phone and say, "Hey Mochan, it's time. It's almost time for us to go to school." As he would get up from the bed, and he would help her up. As she'd say, "Fine." So she'd get up, and after they were done brushing their teeth, they went downstairs for breakfast, which Izuku prepared. With Momo helping set the table and give him ingredients, Izuku would finish cooking, and they would eat. Izuku would remember about the form Yue asked them to fill out about the USJ and said, "Mo-chan, did I don't even know if I'm saying chan right, but okay. Did her parents fill out the form?" She says they did and that he needs to relax a bit. Izuku breathes a sigh of relief and says, "Phew." As Momo would go upstairs and get Izuku's PE uniform, she would get hers as well, and would come downstairs and pack it into Izuku's bag, saying they'll need it for PE. He would thank her as they would go into the limo and arrive for school. And I know it's been very short, but I'm going to end the video here and actually make more scripts instead of procrastinating, because I've been doing more school lately. And yeah, I'm going to try to do daily uploads. I think that's all to say. Yep. See ya.